Hello, everyone. If you are here for the Goodman Speakers webinar with David Romanelli, the wonderful, fabulous David Romanelli, then you're in the right spot. I'm Jenna George. I know most of you, I'm looking at your names as you're filtering in. Thank you so much for spending your time with us today. Thank you for choosing us. We know that there are so many other virtual meetings and other things you could be doing. So thank you. So Dave Romanelli is the author of Happy is the New Healthy. He is author of Life Lessons from the Oldest and Wisest. He is a father of two. He is a husband. He lives in Arizona. He is an amazing speaker. We've done a ton of work together. And I just learned that he is going to be a new voice for the Calm app, which I'd be curious in our Q&A if anybody's using that, but I haven't yet, but I'm so intrigued by it. But I can totally see that, Dave, you doing some mindfulness and some storytelling through that app. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, so we are thrilled to have David here with us. And at this point, I will turn it over to him. Thanks, Dave.
All right, thank you so much. So I put together a little deck for you guys to share. So I'm going to do that right now. And all right, so it's great to be here with you. Maybe some of you may have seen my Happy is the New Healthy talk before, and I'm calling this Happy is the New Healthy Part 2, because I've had a whole new set of life experiences this past year. My previous Happy is the New Healthy talk was based on the work that I've done interviewing older people in their 80s, 90s, and 100s. And I wrote 2 books inspired by those conversations and intergenerational events. Happy is New Healthy and Life Lessons from the Oldest and Wisest. Happy is the New Healthy was inspired by the oldest lady I ever met, who was 111. We call that a super centenarian, and I have a whole, I'll share the lessons, and I've shared the lessons over the years with the great wisdom that I learned from this lady and the formula that she embraced to get to live to these rarefied heights of old age, and the level of joy that she had was really a sight to behold. And now I have a new guru, somebody that is on the other end of the aging spectrum. And in the beginning of the pandemic, my then 3-year-old daughter was diagnosed with leukemia, and she's doing great. She's in remission. And very early on in treatment, the nurses said, look, these little kids, they do amazing with the treatment. And it's really almost supernatural how well they do. And they don't totally, that modern medicine doesn't totally understand why. And I've learned so many lessons from her healing prowess that I want to share with you, because this isn't like a sob story. Woe is me, my kid's going through this. This is about, like, there are so many great lessons that we can learn from a young child who kicks cancer's ass and is totally thriving. And I feel like sharing these lessons with you today is going to give you so much inspiration and the kind of takeaways that you can go back to your day and the rest of your day and your clients and your family and your headaches and your challenges, and feel a legitimate uptick in your quality of appreciation and perspective and joy. So I just want to share with you briefly some of the incredible lessons that we've learned from our daughter over the past year. So number one, just resilience. Early on in her treatment, like, one of the nurses told us that little children, if you get sad or scared in front of your kids, you want to go in the other room and you want to cry it out on your own, but don't do that in front of the little kids, because the little kids respond to positivity. And so we have told our daughter this story throughout the last year of her treatment, that she's getting superpowers in her tubies. And so she doesn't know the word cancer, and she doesn't know the word chemotherapy. And this whole experience for her has been about getting stronger and taller and more loving and all these superpowers. And that's what's been happening in the last year for her. And it's a message about the story that you wrap around your challenges. It makes a huge difference. The story that you tell yourself about what you're going through. You know, it's really easy to tell yourself that what you're going through right now is just draining you and you're exhausted and you're really worried about where your life is going, and this is just a really difficult time. And if that's the story you tell yourself, that's the story that will be true. But if you can also choose to tell yourself the story that these challenges are giving you perspective and they're making you stronger and they're seasoning you so you know more and learn more, and you can learn from the mistakes. And it's just really a choice that we make about the story that we tell ourselves. And we've seen that firsthand. All of these young pediatric oncology patients, they do really well because a lot of it is just they don't consciously process what's happening, and they come back faster. And 90% of kids with the type of leukemia my daughter has, it doesn't return, and they're cured after 5 years. And a part of it is the advances in modern medicine, but also part of it is the storytelling experience. So one other example of storytelling and resilience, I was in Alaska several years ago in Colorado, and we were doing water rafting, and the white water was so intense. The rapids were class 5, and I was actually really scared. And it was one of these great outdoor guides. And the outdoor guide basically said to us, look, if you duck, cower, and hide in the face of these rapids, the force of the rapids is going to suck you out of the raft. It's going to suck you into the river. There's bears all along the sides of the river. This was Alaska in the summer. The water's really, really, really cold, so you'll probably go into hypothermia. So he said, instead of ducking, and what you want to do is you want to stick your paddle into those rapids and engage and row like hell, and that'll give you leverage. And when you have leverage, you're going to stay in the raft. And so we pushed off, and down the river we went, and I rowed like hell. And it was a great life lesson to engage life when life demands to be engaged. So just whatever you're facing right now, and everyone's facing something, you can duck, cower, and hide, say, woe is me, or you can stick your paddle in, engage, and make the choice to be resilient. Another great lesson, a really, really meaningful lesson that I've learned from my daughter this past year in her treatment is just having a sense of humor. So this is her, right in the middle of chemo, she lost her hair. And I mean, like if this was happening to an adult, it would be like, oh my God, it's the worst thing ever. But what, she doesn't care about her hair. We just told her it was her baby hair, and like her baby teeth, her hair is going to come back, and it already is. And you could see that she just had this humor and sense of humor about it. And there was this one time where we were in the children's hospital. We did have a few stays in the children's hospital, and the doctors do rounds every day. So, there's like 12 doctors, and some of them are students because it was a teaching hospital, and they come around and there's like 12 of them. It's kind of daunting. And I had to wait because I needed the update from the doctors. And my daughter, she's only 4, and she didn't want to wait for the doctors. And she was pulling me and saying, come on, Daddy, let's go for a walk. And I said, I got to talk to the doctors. And she's like, come on, Daddy, we want to go for a walk. And so she didn't like that I was making her wait, and she reared back and she popped me right in the gobsmackers, my mandibles, and I was keeled over in pain. And this team of 12 doctors was laughing hysterically. I mean, it was the funniest thing they'd ever seen in their life. Keeled over laughing. I'm keeled over in pain. There's not a lot that's funny on the oncology floor of the children's hospital. And it was just this reminder, you gotta laugh sometimes, because laughing is the instant ticket to feeling joy and just releasing stress and allowing ourselves to remember that life can be a really beautiful experience. So we just have to remember to laugh. And one of the things, my body of work prior to everything with my daughter, and I mentioned, is interviewing older people. And one of the elders who I interviewed for my book, Life Lessons from the Oldest and Wise, her name's Dottie. And in the beginning of the pandemic, I reached out to her, and she told me she had been alone for 2 months. She hadn't really seen anybody. It was so isolating, especially for elders. She hadn't seen anybody in 2 months. And this was when everybody was really freaked out about how contagious COVID was and the germ situation. And Dottie says to me over the phone, she says, before people were worried about dying from unprotected sex. Now we're worried about dying from an unprotected handshake. I just thought it was so funny that she had a sense of humor in her moment of isolation. And it's just this reminder that no matter what you're going through, we can always find a way to laugh and to smile. And it's so contagious and so healthy to do that. And one more lesson I wanted to share is the joy of life, the joie de vivre, is so important, to take time every day to make sure that you have at least one moment where you have fun and you enjoy life, because most of the time we're grinding and we're busy and we're distracted and we just kind of got to get from point A to point B. And there's no joy in that. And you put your head on the pillow to go to sleep at night. And sometimes we don't remember anything that happened that we really enjoyed. And that's no way to live. And, it's so interesting because my daughter will go to the clinic, and there are days where she gets like 4 types of chemo, literally 4 types of chemo. And she comes home and she runs outside. We live in Arizona, so it's been hot for a while now. And she gets in the splash pad or wants to go on the trampoline. She just wants to have fun. And there's no like, woe is me with a 4-year-old. And I just think it's the conscious process of how what she thinks about this whole thing. I mean, if I went to the clinic and got 4 types of chemo, I'd be flat on my back. But she comes home and she just wants to have fun. And I saw that in a lot of the most well-adjusted, happiest, healthiest elders that I've interviewed over the years. Like this guy right here, his name's Joe Pietroforte. And I interviewed him a few years ago. He's a World War II veteran. And he sat there and told me what it was like to fight on the front lines of World War II and against the Germans. And he never thought he'd make it out alive. And 1 out of every 2 people he served with did not make it out alive. And he came back. He survived, obviously. And he just had his 102nd birthday a few weeks ago, 102. And you know what he did on his 102nd birthday? He went out and he went dancing. That's what he did to celebrate his 102nd birthday. And it's that joie de vivre. And to remember, it's one of these secrets of health and happiness that maybe they don't tell you at the doctor's office. And it's, you got to have fun. You got to take time to enjoy yourself, even if you're busy, even if you've been through and seen the worst. And over the last year, I've had a ringside seat to how bad it can get, not with my daughter, but when you're seeing other kids who have different types of cancers and you see a lot of stuff that you don't want to see, and you can either go into a dark corner, or you can remember, like, I gotta go have fun and enjoy life, because life is precious and we got to make the most of every single day. And so it's really changed my formula for happiness, even more than it was before. And we all have this complex formula, and all these things need to happen in order for us to be happy. Like, I'm going to be happy when I get in shape, and I'll be happy when I sell my house, and I'll be happy when my kid gets into school, and all these things that have to happen in order to be happy. That 111-year-old, when I asked her, like, what were your secrets to happiness? It wasn't like, I do the Peloton and I've got to, have a certain amount in savings, and I've got to, do a certain amount of steps each day to get my heart rate up. And her 3 tips were sex, vodka, and spicy food. And so it's this idea that you can be happy right now. You can be happy right this moment. Nothing more needs to happen or change in order for you to be happy. But a huge part of it is sometimes life is difficult, for sure. And I do have hard moments and hard days. And I was telling Jenna before this call, like, look, 90% of the time I have the most profound perspective. My kids are okay and they're healthy and everything's normal. I feel so much bliss and gratitude in my heart. And it's just so easy to just enjoy a glass of wine and be together with family. And if things are not going so good with work, hey, we'll get through that. You can get through that. And 10% of the time I do have a little bit of post-traumatic stress. And to be able to share the vulnerability of what I'm going through, I have these daily meditations. And right now it's Mental Health Awareness Month. I have this whole meditation platform and a whole corporate mindfulness program. And I share in a very conversational way where I'm at, what I'm going through, the ups and downs of life. So it's not so much about technique, and it's more about, let's have a real conversation about life and what we're all going through. And I actually put the link in the comments on this Zoom. And if you want to download 21 free meditations and hear this style of meditation, it is Mental Health Awareness Month. And I stand in the vulnerability and I keep that channel open. And when you let that channel close, that's when you get stressed and anxious and life becomes very difficult. But when you allow yourself to be vulnerable, you keep that channel open, and that's the same channel through which the joy and the perspective and the gratitude is able to flow. So I just wanted to share a little bit about everything that that I've experienced this past year. And while it could have been a knockout punch, instead I embraced it, and it's allowed me to be so much stronger and so much happier and so much more grateful. And I really appreciate the opportunity to share just a little bit of what I've learned this past year, and would love to open it up if anyone has any questions.
Thanks, Dave. As always, you're such a pleasure, and you give us so much insight and so much perspective. I mean, a lot of what you talked about to me sounded like movement and engagement. I was hearing a lot from the elders and the littles in terms of what they need to be happy. And obviously the past year, some of that was stifled, and some of that's maybe stifled on our own terms. I mean, if movement you can still do regardless of the pandemic, but sometimes it's just, you feel like there's just so much going on, and you know, how do I go out and go for a run? I've got all this to worry about. So, you know, I just love when you tell us to just be happy now and find what makes you happy and just do that, versus like this, because I think with the pandemic, there was probably a lot of forward thinking too, like, you know, when this gets lifted, I'm going to go exercise, or when I can meet people again, that's when I'm going to be happy. And so, you know, I personally found the last year to be kind of a nice pause and like a recharge. I wasn't going through a child sickness like you were, but I told you that. I agreed with you. You said you've got this 90% you're good and 10% you're a cuckoo bird. I'm like, that's me, and I don't even have a reason.
Yeah.
I mean, we all have that 10% that creeps in on us sometimes, at least, you know, if you can find that 90%. So everyone, you know, please feel free to throw some questions into the chat. Dave is just, I love Q&A with you because you're so vulnerable. You're so honest and fun. And so ask him anything. I want to hear more about the Calm app. Have you already started recording those, or is that something that's coming soon? And does
Not yet. It's
Calm app?
No, it's a storytelling approach to meditation.
Okay.
Where I think for a lot of people, meditation's super boring. We want to be into it, but this idea of closing your eyes and can be just hard to do. But if you have a story that engages you and brings you into a moment where you're compelled to close your eyes and focus on a feeling that's really beautiful, and your mind is quiet enough that you can close your eyes, closing your eyes can be a really amazing thing. I have a saying that a vibrant inner life is much more powerful than a busy outer one. But sometimes we need a guide and we need story to get us to a place where we're willing to do that. So it's a new approach to meditation that I'm going to be sharing that's I've found to be really effective with my audience and some of the companies that I work with. And I do a new meditation every day that ties into what's going on in the world, the news, sports, art, music, pop culture. So it feels like it's relatable and current, and not, you know, created by some meditation guru in a Speedo, you know, eating a bag of seeds on a mountaintop that you can't relate to in the slightest. I mean, obviously I'm in the mix with everybody, going through the ups and downs with everybody. And so it's like, let's have a conversation about life and feel good together.
So for those, I'm going to totally put you on the spot here, but I know you can do it in some way. Can you, you know, I have to my knowledge, I have never really meditated, except for the fact that I probably do it and don't realize that I'm, you know, like I'm going to meditate right now. I've done one guided meditation at an event. But is that something you could do? Could you do like a 1 minute, like little something for us all, that just or do you think that it's just not, that's just not how you'd want to do it? I'm like I said, I'm putting you on the spot because I know nothing really about it. But like, is that not how you would do it? Because I know you do guided meditations and you do them.
Sure.
You know, we're booking you. You know, we've been booking you for like in-person events now and guided meditations on site. So if this is not the right, you know, atmosphere.
Well, let me do it. There's a way that I do it in my speaking engagements.
Okay.
That's different from a virtual meditation. So if you're,
okay,
and if you've seen my Happy is the New Healthy, you may have seen this, but I think it's a more physical approach to meditation so that you see how powerful it is. So I just want to invite you to take your arms like this, and basically what we're doing here is we're going to hold our arms like this for just a couple minutes. And what we do is we're going to stimulate intensity in your shoulders.
Okay,
and
everyone's doing this, right? I can't see you all, so you better be doing it with me.
if you don't do it, you miss the whole experience. So
Got
I
it.
really want to encourage you to do this.
Yes, everyone do this with us. Okay.
And what happens is that we're going to stimulate crisis. So you're stressed, you're freaking out, you're going crazy. And what we learn is in the yoga practice or in meditation practice or any of these ancient Eastern arts, that if you breathe through it, you get a better result than if you react to it. And there's something that's very common in psychology called your disaster personality or your crisis personality. And it basically says that under pressure, people's personalities change. So some people under pressure, they freak out and they become not so pleasant. And maybe you've seen that with people you know or people you work with. Under pressure, they become like total jerks.
Yep.
And some people, interestingly enough, some people under pressure, they actually become really calm and cool and helpful. And you might even say heroic.
Mhm.
So what we learn here is to breathe consciously. And the breath has an effect on a stressed out mind. It's a lot like a mother's voice has on the baby, where you just are able to slow down your mental process and relax. We take over 20,000 breaths in a 24-hour period. Most of them are totally unconscious. And just to pay attention to a couple of breaths is really soothing. So see if you can just take a few deep breaths and notice how, even though you're feeling intensity in your shoulders, when you breathe, it kind of shifts your attention towards something that's not so stressful and not so intense. There's a Chinese proverb in, if you're calm, I forget what it is. One moment of anger, I forget the proverb. Something about freaking out in one moment of anger causes 100 days of sorrow. Okay. You know, we do it with our kids. We do it with our coworkers. You hate who you become when you send that angry message or you lash out at your kids. So if we had a technique to breathe rather than react, it's much more effective. And that's the essence of meditation. So now you just take your hands to your heart and close your eyes for a moment. And you kind of feel a buzzing warmth and calmness that draws you into the moment. And that's why I love meditation. And that's why it's really good for your mental health, because it gives you a way to open the release valve and let out the stress and the anxiety and let in and make room for the peace of mind and the relaxation. But we need to have a technique to do that.
I love that. I knew you could do it. See, I knew you would do something fun with us, something like my arms are burning, but in yoga, they always tell you to breathe into the muscle and you're like, what? Like that, I get it now. Like you're taking the breaths and I was like feeling it in my tight, tense muscles, but breathe into the muscles. I'm always like, okay, lady, get us out of this pose.
Well, and the same with meditation is like, it works fine when you're in your quiet room, but what do you do when you're in the thick of it, in the heat of the moment in life, and your clients are freaking out and your coworkers are freaking out? And, how do you stay calm in those moments? That's where the rubber hits the road. And why I think my approach to meditation and how I bring it into the speaking makes it feel more real for people.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't say so myself.
Yeah. Well, I heard something the other day, and it was, regarding storytelling, and that, that you retain so much more of the content when it's wrapped around a story. And that's why I appreciate so much what you do, because you're big on storytelling, and you've got these lovely little tidbits of positive energy and, takeaways to kind of, live happy now, things like that. But they're wrapped in stories, and it helps us to remember, oh, well, Dave said this because he was talking about that. And it just helps us to kind of really remember why, to give us some personal perspective, certainly, with your daughter. And I'm so glad that she's doing well. I've been following the journey, and I asked you before this call if you're having like some PTSD, because it does seem like you get adrenaline to just bring you through things, and we're all going through something. Everybody's got something that they're dealing with. And then sometimes when it calms down, that's when you like start to freak out a little bit. And that seems to me, when you said, like, when you need to maybe really meditate, is almost maybe not during a time of stress, but like as the stress is like peaking, or like sometimes when you have something crazy going on, an event or a work deadline or a meeting, and sometimes it's like not even during, it's like as soon as you like finish, you're just like, oh my God, that was crazy. And this negativity can kind of overwhelm you. And that's when I think you need the positivity the most. So to like
Yeah,
calm and move to the
more
next.
now she's in a much easier stage of her treatment, and the post-traumatic stress is much more intense now than before, because you're right, everything is calm and getting back to normal.
Mm-hmm.
And those are hard moments. It's probably 10% of my life I am in that state.
Mm-hmm.
And if anyone listening has ever had PTSD or like, anxiety, it's real.
It is real. Anxiety is so real. Yeah. And I think more of us deal with it than we know or care to admit. But I read something else recently, that we get resilience from things that we care about. So, for me, doing events like this, bringing great speakers to people, even just taking 30 minutes with us today, you guys, I hope you got something amazing out of it. I hope it just let you focus on something positive. You learned that little meditation trick. You can download the Meditate On, and yes, that's spelled right. I said, is that spelled right? I thought it was meditation. Meditate On. And so you can download that, get the 21 free meditations. Dave, I just think you're incredible. I think everything you do is fantastic. You're a joy always. And I appreciate everyone spending the time with us today, and hope you got a lot out of it, and hope that you will bring Dave to your meeting, because we know how successful and how much impact he can have.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right. Bye, everyone. Thanks so much for joining. Have a wonderful day.